It's now been a few weeks since I bought the Logitech MX Master 4. In this video I will show you what's new, how it compares to the previous generations, and give you my honest opinion on whether it's worth buying or not. Let's get right into it, starting with a super quick unboxing. The sensor on the MX Master 4 seems to be unchanged from its predecessor, the 3S. So we're looking at 800 dpi and 125 Hz polling rate. And for all you less nerdy folks out there, polling rate just means how often your mouse is telling your computer where it is. In this case, 125 times a second. A lower polling rate can make the cursor feel a little less smooth and responsive. But the upside is that it saves battery. Higher polling rate gives a smoother movement and a more responsive feel, though it uses more power. Now 125 Hz might sound low compared to today's gaming mice, which often run anywhere from 1000 to 8000 Hz. But honestly, for productivity work, most people won't probably care or notice it in everyday use, and the mouse movement will still feel smooth and responsive. For true mouse enthusiasts, however, this may actually be a deal breaker. Battery life hasn't really changed either. The 2S had about 70 hours, the 3S had exactly the same. And now with the 4, we're still stuck at 70 hours, even though the battery capacity is now 30% bigger. Most of that extra juice is probably being used up by the new haptic feedback feature, which we will get into in just a minute. The super quiet switches from the 3S are as quiet as ever. They have worked perfectly fine for me over the years, but I do actually think that they sound just a touch quieter this time around. But don't take my word for it, listen for yourself. Honestly though, unless you're coming from an older MX Master like the 2S or earlier, you probably won't notice much difference. The max speed scroll wheel is still ridiculously smooth, but that was already the case with the 3S. Once again, if you're coming from a 2S or earlier, that's when you will really notice the difference. So now let's dive into the parts that are actually different, starting with the size. The first thing I noticed when I picked up the MX Master 4 was that it was bigger. It has now grown a few millimeters in almost every direction and weighs about 9 grams more than the previous generation. And you can really feel it, especially the extended length. For the first time, the back of the mouse actually rests against my palm constantly, something that didn't happen with the earlier models. It's also wider. Personally, I'm fine with the larger footprint, but if you have smaller hands, it could actually be a deal breaker. The 3S was already a fairly large mouse. The overall design has also been refined and more streamlined this year, and I really like it. It just looks way cleaner in my opinion. Speaking of cleaner, let's talk materials. Previous MX Masters had a soft, grippy rubber surface all around the mouse. It felt great, but it actually had some issues. Namely, the white or the lighter colored 3S tended to discolor over time. It was actually the reason I switched to the dark version after a while. With the MX Master 4 though, this should hopefully no longer be an issue. The top is now covered in hard plastic with a textured finish, while the sides, where your fingers naturally rest, remain soft and grippy like before. So handling feels just as good as before. It will be interesting to see if the soft side materials hold up or if they also start to discolor over time. I guess only time will tell. Personally, I do actually prefer the fully rubberized top from the 3S and older models. I think it gave the mouse a more warm and comfortable feel. The hard plastic feels a bit cooler and more clinical at first, but you do actually get used to it quite quickly. And since it should now resist stains much better, I actually think the new material change was the right move. The side scroll wheel has evolved over the years. With the 3 and 3S it became bigger and had a more premium metal feel than the 2S. This year it's slightly bigger again and has also been repositioned higher up. And this makes it easier to reach, since the back of the mouse doesn't get in the way anymore. And you can also scroll further with each motion too. It's a minor change, but it really improves the usability and day-to-day experience in my opinion. The mouse gates have actually gotten quite a bit larger compared to the 3S and now looks much more like the ones on the 2S. However, when it comes to the actual feel, I have to admit I don't really notice that much of a difference. Another small noteworthy change is connectivity. The MX Master 4 has improved connection and stability compared to the 3S. Personally though, I have never had any issues with the previous MX Master models, so this isn't a huge deal for me, but it sure is a welcome improvement. The big new feature this year is the new side button, which now comes with customizable haptic feedback for certain actions, like switching between desktops. It replaces the old gesture button, which has been moved up next to the other side buttons. By default, the new button is linked to Logitech's Action Ring, which is basically just a customizable shortcut menu. And there are a lot of pre-built shortcuts to choose from in Logitech Options Plus. Some of my personal favorites include mapping specific folders on my external hard drives for quick access, or setting up a toggle to switch both my keyboard and mouse between input devices. But you can actually get really creative here if you want. Since you can run commands and invoke scripts, these shortcuts can be made quite advanced if you want to. There are also plugins for certain applications that take advantage of the new haptic feedback, like Adobe Lightroom, where you can hover over a shortcut linked to a setting such as the brightness or exposure of the image and then use the scroll wheel to make precise adjustments. The plugin marketplace is still pretty limited though, with only a few applications supported at this point in time. But it will be interesting to see how this evolves over time. But here's the thing, the Action Ring is just a software feature in Logitech Options Plus, so it's also available on older MX Master models as well. The difference is that the older models don't have the dedicated button from scratch, and of course they don't have the haptic feedback. But apart from that, you could basically map any button on the previous models to the new Action Ring as well. And honestly, that's a good thing, that Logitech has decided not to restrict new software features to the latest hardware, which some companies tend to do nowadays. The new haptic feedback is a nice addition and I actually really like it. But right now, very few apps actually makes meaningful use of it. So for most users, I actually think it's just going to be an extra button that you can map however you want. So I don't think it's something that will drastically change how you use the mouse, at least that seems to be the case for me. So who should actually upgrade? Well, if you already have the MX Master 3S, there aren't really many reasons to move up to the 4. At least that's my opinion. Not because the 4 isn't great or an improvement over the previous generation, but because the 3S was already such a great mouse. The MX Master 4 feels more like a refinement than a big leap forward. And if you have smaller hands, you might actually be better off sticking with the 3S since it's slightly smaller and less bulky. For me personally, the biggest reason to upgrade is actually found on the surface this time around. The new materials finally make the lighter color a viable option, since it's supposedly much more resistant to stains than the 3S. I know that's mostly about aesthetics rather than functionality, but if you're a sucker for white peripherals like myself, that alone may actually be a good enough reason to pull the trigger. And sure, the new vibrating side button is a nice addition that improves the overall user experience. Overall, I think Logitech has done a solid job refining an already excellent mouse. They have cleaned up the design, made it more resistant to stains, and improved its usability, all without changing the core features that made the previous versions such great productivity tools. If you're on a 2S or older, or if this is the first time you are considering the MX Master lineup, the MX Master 4 is really a solid option in my opinion. And that wraps it up. I hope you found this review helpful, and if you did, feel free to leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Alright, see ya!